Welcome to the Reborn Outdoors podcast. We are jumping into episode number 3.
Wow. I'm 2 behind.
Yeah. Gabe missed one of our recording days, so this is your introduction to Gabe.
Hey, everybody.
If you are watching on video, he's over on the left side there. But we are now about a week into turkey season. A weekend into turkey season at this point. When this comes out, we will be a couple of weeks into turkey season. But we got a little bit of turkey to go over, just very minimally, and we've got a Devo today as well. So, but before we get into that, Gabe, tell us a brief history of your hunting experiences, where you come from, what you know about hunting, what you don't.
What makes you think you deserve to be on this podcast right now?
Correct. I do not deserve to be on this podcast. Just like the 3 of us don't.
That's for sure.
So I have been hunting for 6 years now. Yes, the spring before my wife and I got married was my first turkey hunt. The next spring, I killed my first turkey and haven't seen very many since. I have killed several deer and filled the freezer, and that's my goal for hunting, is make sure that I've got enough meat in the freezer to provide for my family. I forget what all the questions were, but
what's your preference? Like,
how do you more archery, rifle, public, private?
I love archery hunting. I love the intimacy of it and just the challenge of it. But this past season, I did not get a kill with my bow. I got 3 kills with my rifle because it was time to get meat.
Yeah.
Last season, I pretty much did not touch my rifle and did not get a deer. So it was time to fill the freezer, and I was able to get 2 does and a unicorn. It was literally a single horned yearling buck.
Was it a mutant or did it break off?
It broke off.
Oh, okay, so it wasn't like literally growing out.
It wasn't literally growing out, but it did have a spot where 2 horns were.
Okay.
And it looks like it may have broken off in velvet and just kind of shaved off. But it was right as the rut was beginning in our area. And I had my sights on a doe during doe day. And this guy just came chasing after that doe, and I said, you don't look big enough to repopulate, so you die first.
Yeah.
And then I tried to get a shot at the doe, but she was too far away from my 243 that was sighted in at 100 yards. But I did get to have a pretty cool experience in 2024 with my brother-in-law, and we can go into that story later. But first-time hunter, was able to get a doe on a doe day, and he is hooked, ready to get back after it.
That's cool.
Sweet.
Public or private?
I enjoy the challenge of public, but I fall back on private to make sure that I've got the freezer filled for sure.
That's fair.
So we are going to kind of kick off a new segment. I say new segment. Everything is a new segment. Because this is episode 3.
3 episodes in.
So when we originally started this idea, it was based around, one, telling hunting stories and sharing our hunting, fishing, hiking, outdoor experiences in general. And the other key aspect, I won't say secondarily, but another key aspect of it was that we want to integrate our faith in Jesus.
We're all Christians.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that was obviously a primary driving factor for what we wanted to do. So we're going to start integrating that into some of our content and things like that.
Yeah.
So that's what this part of this podcast is going to be. Mm-hmm. We're going to do a quick Devo, and then I think we're going to talk a little bit more about some turkey season stuff.
Well, I guess if we're just, still kind of doing introductions, it's maybe important to note that, like, I'm a pastor. I'm a senior pastor at a church. This summer will be 5 years for me as a senior pastor. Gabe has served at a church.
I have a youth ministry degree as an undergrad.
Yeah.
I am currently working as a teacher at our local school, and have served at our local church now for 5 years.
Yeah.
In various aspects.
Yeah, the church that Gabe serves at was a church plant, and then it grew, and he's kind of always been in leadership for the most part, helping out with music and some other things. And then Mike and his wife help out with a branch out from that church plant at a different town, kind of right down the road, but still associated and still under that umbrella. And
so I kind of help with like tech and media stuff at that particular campus, and then obviously support
and the main
her.
campus.
Yeah, I mean some, but
that's okay.
Yeah, mostly helping my wife with all of the tasks that she has on Sunday.
Because she does a lot of administrative stuff. And
correct.
Yeah.
She's a campus director, so kind of handles and oversees all of the day in, day out operations of that particular campus. Very similar. I mean, same type of role as a campus pastor without a teaching position at that point. But, yeah.
All right, but yeah, so all of us believe in Jesus. He's our Lord and Savior. When we get to go play in the woods, we're enjoying His creation and getting to experience it kind of in a more intimate and natural way, I guess.
Yeah.
And we don't take it for granted. We know
Absolutely not.
who made it and who gave it to us, and we get to be, it's one of the places that you can get sucked into the hunt, and obviously your mind can be racing and going 1,000 ways, but it's one of the places where you can be still and be quiet, and you can hear from God, and sun on your face, breeze on the back of your neck, and just be out there and be alone with Him. And
that was my biggest takeaway this past weekend with the turkey season opener. And we'll get into the details of this story, but I got out in the woods late. All the turkeys were gone, if there were even turkeys there.
Yeah.
And I just got to spend one-on-one time with God, and that was the coolest part. Yes, I was frustrated that there were no turkeys or I was getting no response, but my response was I got to spend time with Jesus.
Yeah.
And that's what excites me more than seeing birds or seeing deer or whatever else.
Yeah. And so our Devo today is kind of around the verse in Psalm chapter 47 or 46, which just talks about being still and knowing that He is God. Now, that's a common theme you see all throughout Scripture of people getting apart, being set apart, and just being alone with God. You see Jesus do it oftentimes when He's going to pray, when He goes out into the wilderness before He began His ministry, when He's in the Garden of Gethsemane at the end of His ministry, when He's just being alone and speaking to His Father and spending time with Him as He prepares for whatever God's calling Him to at that point in His life.
You mean to tell me that Jesus took naps?
Jesus did take naps, but Jesus also got alone and was still and prayed with God. And, in today's time, it's so hard for us to do that because we're constantly going and doing something because some of us have kids and careers, and our wives have careers and things going on.
And we do live in America.
We do live in America, and there's stuff to do with whatever your social circle is, whether it's your church or your family or your friends or whatever clubs or things you associate with, if you're trying to take care of yourself or go do this and do that. And for some of us who are entrepreneurs, it's like always trying to run that hustle mindset of any time in the day in which you're not doing something that's getting you a step ahead, then you're getting a step behind, basically. But that's not necessarily how God called for us to be. He challenges us, even in the way in which He spoke creation into motion and said all these things are good. At the end of it, He rested, and He took that time to Sabbath. And part of the reason that why, even though the law has passed away or it's been fulfilled by Christ, depending on which part you're looking at, there's still supposed to be a rhythm in our own lives now in which, yes, we gather together for worship, to praise Him, to learn more from His Word, and to be in that community that we're saved into through the blood of Christ. But at the same time, there's a time in which we need to be alone with God, and we need to trust in Him and rest in Him, because whenever we Sabbath now, part of that is a recognition of we don't have to do it all and we don't have to be enough. He is working for us still. Even Christ sitting at the right hand of the Father is still interceding on our behalf, perfecting our prayers, doing all these things. But at the same time, like God the Father, like he loves us, the Spirit's within us working for us, and we need to be dependent upon him, and we need to rest. And that's when you do that, when you take time to be alone, to be still, that's a place in which like he can bring you peace, he can bring you restoration, because you're recognizing who he is and putting him in his proper place as Lord of Lords, King of Kings. And it's not all on you. You're to lean on him.
Right.
So
one way I think about that is my relationship with my wife. We wouldn't have a relationship if I didn't take time to spend talking to her, spending time with her. And it's the same way with God. He wants a relationship with us.
Yeah.
So part of that is we have to stop and have conversation with him, or just sit with him.
yeah, it's about the trust.
Right.
So, Justin, you mentioned a couple of like theological topics that I want you to dumb down just in case, because we don't exactly know what the audience for this is going to be yet.
That's fair.
So you talked about salvation. Obviously, I think we should probably like address that in another additional way. And then you also talked about Jesus being the fulfillment of the law.
You want to get into that on this one?
How much time do you got?
Well, maybe just dumb down what the law is.
Okay.
Or was.
Yeah, that's a
and
good call.
Kind of a 2-minute version
Sure.
of how Jesus was the fulfillment of that. Just in case like somebody heard that and was like, what on earth is the law?
Are you literally
ready
to time me right now? Okay. All right. Here's the deal. Old Testament, what we see within that portion of Scripture is that God created the world. There was man. God had a will for man and gave man commandments. For example, like, hey, don't eat that fruit, right? What did we do? We broke the law. We ate the fruit. Now that was God's will, which is the law, so on and so forth. We fell from there, okay? Now man is out of that. Sin has entered the world, and we're not given an account of the law necessarily until Moses comes. If you want a scriptural understanding of this and a way to kind of like read through and to guide you through kind of this whole concept of how Christ has come and he's fulfilled the law and how the law was a shadow of things to come, go read Hebrews. Read Hebrews, study through Hebrews. That's what I'm preaching through right now on Sundays. And that's kind of where you can find a summary of all this. But the law was delivered to Moses. So this is after Noah, after many of the other things in the Old Testament. The law was delivered to Moses. And it is from then that like from Moses until Christ, the law reigned.
What was the law in place? Or why was the law in there?
The law was in place for people to get an idea and recognize what their sins were. So sin, obviously, tied back into our outdoorsy stuff. Sin is a term that comes from archery, and it means to miss the mark. Our sin against God is rebellion, or the things that come from our hearts, greed, lust, envy, these different things, hatred. And any time in which we would pursue those things over God's will, like that is us sinning against God. And so he delivered us, there was something like 600 plus laws or commands that were to be followed, some of them dealing with, physical purity, spiritual purity, kind of these different levels. But for the most part, they were put in place, one, to show that, man, we could never live up to them, right? We couldn't fulfill the law. None of us could follow it perfectly. That is why they were kind of a shadow, and Christ came because he fulfilled the law. Because it's under the justification which he's provided for us, meaning when Christ died on the cross, took on all the weight of sin, he bore that penalty of death. And now if you believe in Jesus Christ, you put your faith in him as your Lord and Savior, you will be saved, and you're under that. And so that's the old covenant was under the law. The new covenant we have now is under the grace and the salvation which Christ has made available. And so, yeah, that's why I say he was the fulfillment of the law. Because, like, just again, if you want to go study in Hebrews, you'll see how he's pretty much running through the book. He's greater than angels. He's a greater high priest than under the old covenant. He's a greater sacrifice than any of the animals' blood that was shed. His blood was enough to save us once and for all time. Mm-hmm. And to make us righteous in God's eyes. So that's kind of what I was talking about there. But again, like how much time do you want to take on it? But yeah, that's Christ
that was pretty good for how deep of a concept and conversation that is.
That was not 2 minutes.
You did a good job.
It was 4.
It was 3 or 4.
Whatever.
It was pretty good.
That was good.
I'm impressed, honestly.
Sure.
Say the sin term again. You went by it. You said it was
the archery
to miss
term?
the mark.
Oh yeah, sin and kind of its Hebrew is derived from an archery term, to miss the mark.
Huh. Very cool.
Sure.
I had no idea.
There you go.
I mean, I know what I understand sin,
Right?
but I had not heard the translation like that. Cool.
Yeah.
I like that. We may have to do a whole episode just on
Not
that.
may, we will.
Yeah. We can.
Okay.
So stay tuned.
Yeah.
Yes. And if you kept up with that,
I know I talk fast. I do. It just kind of comes.
you're doing better than I did, first of all.
Yeah.
But there will be more of that coming. So
Just read Hebrews.
yeah. And if you didn't, then there's also some other stuff coming as well. So
Yeah. I mean,
don't be overwhelmed.
No, this is going to be kind of a key part because, like, yes, we want to tell, one of the reasons we started this podcast and our channel is because, like, we experience so much being out in the woods.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I've never been out there and not had some kind of cool encounter or experience or a story to tell. And you can't do that, very easily. And there's just a wealth of that. And it's one of those things where you've experienced the same things, and therefore I can tell you my story and you can appreciate it. Mm-hmm. And same with you. You know what I mean? Hunters and people, even people who hike or camp who just spend any time outdoors, they have that shared experience, and therefore it's much more meaningful to them than if I go tell it to one of my brother-in-laws who's never picked up a bow or a gun. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
And so, and I get almost as much enjoyment out of hearing what you went through as my own experience, And so that's what this is about, and that's why it's important and why we wanted to do that. But at the same time, along the same kind of lines, same thing with our faith, same thing with Scripture, because even though, you look at any passage, it may have one divinely inspired meaning, there's 1,000 applications that can come from that. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, that's what we're here, and that's what we're about.
And you and I you and I have hunted together and experienced the same thing, but come back with different stories.
Yes. I've got one that we can tell. You want to talk about our turkey hunting experience?
Our turkey hunting that turned into a predator hunt?
Yeah, when we became the hunted.
Yes.
Let's do that.
Oh, right now. Okay. Mike just stood up to check the camera, and we thought we were stopping.
Just wait till it sits down.
This was actually last season.
All right, you're telling the one about when we were at the ranch.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So we get set up. We again came in late, but we went to a place.
Why were we late, Gabe?
Because I had to drive to Atlanta that morning to drop off somebody at the airport.
That's what I thought,
and come back.
If you don't know, Gabe is always late to everything.
I'm late to everything.
He was
I
on
was
time
early
today.
Now, I'm late to things, but you make me look early.
You're welcome.
Thank
That's
you.
bad.
That
To
was
be fair, Gabe backed out on our last recording session, like at the time we were supposed to record. So
10 minutes before.
okay, and you were 40 minutes away.
Yeah. Ish.
Anyways,
So let's go back to turkey hunting. We get in the woods. Sunrise is already up. but we go to a place that we saw scratching the season before, saw turkeys there, and get set up and just kind of start calling, settle in, let the woods settle down. Squirrels start moving, and I thought I heard a weird squirrel bark. Like, okay, that's weird. Call a couple more times. Oh, there's another sound. And we are sitting probably the width of this room away from each other on a tree. You're facing one way, I'm facing the other, but we can see each other. I hear the barking and almost a groan.
No, this is what I experienced because they were in the tree above me, and we're doing we're making our calls poorly,
very poorly,
and then all of a sudden I hear
that's
coming from above my head, and I look at you, and my eyes are like this. I'm like, what is that?
So I look up, and there are 2 raccoons. I see one coming out of the nest,
coming
and another
down.
one. It came out to the limb, but looking straight at one of us.
I felt threatened.
Yeah, and you should have, because they are raccoons, and you woke them up.
They're tiny bears.
Yeah.
Trash pandas.
So there's one coming out on the limb looking at us, another one kind of rubbing the sleep out of its eyes in the nest.
Have you never dealt with a raccoon one-on-one?
No, I don't think so.
I don't like the criticism in your chuckle.
Well, I've shot them. The first animal I ever killed was a raccoon. That was out in Texas when I was like 8.
Yeah.
What were you using?
A 20 gauge, I think.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That I was also trying to turkey hunt with at like 100 yards with regular birdshot. But that's a different story because I was like 10.
Most of the raccoons I've dealt with have been in like pest control situations.
Oh, no. I missed a raccoon twice the last day of season with my bow.
Fair enough.
He was at like 35 yards out in the field, and I was like, I got this. I haven't shot my bow in like 3 months. I got this. Settled in. I'm like sitting in a ground blind, so I've never shot seated before. Great idea. I got, get settled in, let it go. I was like, he just didn't move. And I was like, oh, dude, I nailed him. Nailed him. I got so excited, and then he just started walking away. No. And then he went and climbed up the tree, and I shot at him again, and I missed him again.
Lucky that bull didn't come for you. Because you catch a squirrel in a trap, you open the trap, the squirrel runs away. You catch a possum in the trap, it's going to like at you, but you open the trap, and it's going to skitter off.
Yep.
You catch a raccoon in a trap, and you open it to let it go, it's coming for you.
Yep.
And it's going to try to kill you the entire time that it's in the trap. And it's going to try to kill everything around it. Ferocious.
So those were sitting above your head in the nest, and we woke them up.
If they were 40 pounds heavier, they would be a threat to human life. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, my gosh.
I don't like them. All right.
We can post the picture of these to this video because I still have it.
So there were 2 raccoons in the tree above us, and one was coming down because we were now being hunted.
Yes.
Go on.
We quickly looked up the laws and saw that you can take a pest off of private land out of season. They were a pest. They were taking out turkeys. So we got up. We lined up. I took the first shot. You cleaned up, and it took several shots to make sure that these things were dead. And even as they landed from 15 to 20 feet in the air and hit the ground with a thud, it was still
alive. Still alive.
So I took its cheek off with my 12 gauge.
Yeah. There you go. So, you never know. Now,
that was an eventful turkey hunt.
Now, I think during turkey hunting, it's the most that like hunters become hunted by other animals. Because my associate pastor, he's got a story from, I think it was last year, the year before. He had a bobcat jump on him.
Oh, wow.
From behind. He got snuck up on, and it like jumped on him.
He was a turkey?
Yes.
That's wild.
Jumped on him, kind of latched in, and then figured out what was happening and like sprung off of him. And he just dirtied his shorts, basically, because it was so scary.
I bet.
And I've heard, people tell, now he is someone I know who experienced this, and he didn't lie to me about it, but, people have had bears and one of our friends, Corey, has had coyotes multiple times come up on him while turkey hunting.
I've had 2 coyotes come up on me while turkey hunting.
Yeah.
Wow. You guys must be better callers than I am.
My crow call sounded dead. Sounded like a dead rabbit is what I thought. Is what I assume. And here they come.
So, yeah. So, Mike, you had an experience this past weekend, too, during opener.
Correct. So, we're in Georgia, which means that the overly privileged people get turkey hunting rights.
Wait,
before
can you explain this to us again, Justin?
Overly privileged?
No, how the season opens in Georgia.
Oh, anyways.
Yeah.
Private opens
Private first,
then for
public.
a week, and then public.
Then all the public lands open. So, I don't know. I think that's a weird rule, personally. So, I'm mostly a public land hunter, so that's why I give it crap.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think that's a weird rule. But anyways, and I know a lot of states do that or something similar. But in any case, this past weekend was the private land opener.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I'm primarily public land hunter, and I have one family piece of property that is a total of 10 acres, and huntable area is like 6 acres maybe.
So you're saying you are one of the privileged people?
A little bit, yeah. I'm married into a very, very, very small amount of money in 10 acres. So,
but 6 acres is not comparable to the thousands that we have.
Hundreds of thousands of public acres, right. Correct. But in any case, I still take full advantage of that and utilize it as best as I can, trying to use it as kind of like a fun little project for me to like work on, work on the like habitat improvement and land management and stuff. It's surrounded by neighbors who all hunt. It's backing up to national forest. So it's such a small piece of property. It's not really like it's not like I'm managing a farm, but
right.
It's fun to think about it like that.
Sure.
So, but I do hunt out there, some for deer and some for turkey, and they definitely have a few turkeys in that vicinity within the neighboring properties and stuff. So I knew they were out there. During deer season, during the doe day, I had shot a doe, and I went back out there after I had shot it to clean up my stuff. And I'm driving down into the field, and there's 11 toms. All standing in the field, and I drove my truck like right at them full speed just to see like they had no care in the world. I could have probably run 6 out of the 11 over. They just wouldn't have cared. But obviously they're a lot harder to kill when season is open.
Naturally.
So the opener also happened to fall on Easter weekend, which was somewhat significant to the story. So we're going to get into the story right now that I've introed it for 5 minutes. So opening morning, I went out there and sat. I had put a ground blind out a couple weeks prior, thinking there's a specific spot that I was thinking would probably be the easiest place to get a bird to fly down. Maybe would roost kind of around the field edge somewhere, and thinking it may fly down. There was a little bit of scratching. It looked a little bit older, but there definitely was some there. So I was like, I'll put the blind here. So I get out there opening morning, and the blind is like blown over, leaned up against the neighbor's fence. So
fun.
I was like, well, I was out there plenty early. Opening morning, I'm always early. After that, I'm always late. So
what's that like?
I was good on time. I mean, I had probably 30 or 40 minutes before the sun started to rise. So especially for turkey, I felt pretty good about that.
Yeah.
But I decided not to fool with the blind because they were gobbling kind of on the neighbor's property. Backs up to like a pretty good size cow pasture area. And I could hear them gobbling like on the far side of the pasture. So I kind of set up down towards the fence line area. I don't know, probably 80 or 100 yards off the fence, something like that.
Yeah.
Hoping that they would come across at some point throughout the morning and I'd get a shot. That never happened. So Saturday was kind of a wash. But they were definitely gobbling good on the roost, and then as soon as they got down, it was nothing, which is kind of what I expected.
And that's kind of normal for this time of year.
Yeah. Sunday, which happened to be Easter, We had we do our Easter thing at church in the morning, and we got a family get together around dinner time, and so I'm like dressed in my neon green, my Easter fit, and I was like, let's just, we were at another family's house, which is just a couple miles down the road. So I said to my brother-in-law, I was like, hey, you want to just hop in the car, run down there, see if they're out in the field, like we'll put a game plan together and we'll make a move, whatever. Not at all expecting anything to happen. So I'm in like
pastels.
Oh yeah, full pastel, like blue and red hat, lime green shirt, shorts, flip-flops.
Perfect turkey hunting clothes.
The whole deal. We pull up to the barn. We park at the barn and kind of walk down to the field. So I get up to the barn. We're like talking like normal, expecting nothing's going to happen. We open the door to the car and he's like, dude, they're right here. When I say right here, we're like maybe 5 yards off of the fence, which is the property line. Yeah. They're probably 5 yards on the other side of the property line.
On your side?
The opposite, the neighbor side. So, and we're right behind the barn, and they're traveling parallel with the length of the barn. So I'm like, I've got time. Right now. I have time. So I grab my gun, I grab my pack, and I'm like running full sprint in my flip-flops and neon green, running down to the field. And I dove through the woods. I'm like sliding all over the leaves and stuff, making a ton of noise because I was like, I can cut these things off.
Yeah.
They're going to come right across the field, and I just need to get across the field, which is like 150 yards, across the field into the wood line and lay on the ground somewhere because they're going to come right at me. So sure as can be, take off running. And I got to like the edge of the field where there's like a barn, a little bit of section of woods, open field, another section of woods, another open field.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like segmented. So I get to the edge of the first section of woods. And I'm kind of looking because I'm like, this is my deciding point. Mm-hmm. I either need to sit down and call or I need to like book it across this field.
And pray they don't see you.
Correct.
Yep.
And so I'm like kind of leaned up against the tree, breathing heavy because I've been sprinting and I'm fat. And I'm running in flip-flops. Yeah. I'm watching the turkeys like cross the fence, jumping into the property line, and they're like going straight for the edge of the field. So I was like, I'm not going to make it. So I like laid down, full out, like full prone, laid down, and my shot, I watched 3 toms walk across the field. My shot would have been like about 90 yards.
Oof.
Which is no go.
It's a no stop.
No go. So
might as well get your BB gun out.
Yeah, I was like, that's as close as I could. Like, I'm in the last tree, laying down up against a tree so they don't see me in this bright green shirt, and I'm just watching them go. And so my brother-in-law was still behind me, so he started calling, and I tried to start calling, and they kind of like looked a little bit but couldn't see anything, so they just kept on going. But they like came across the field into the woods, back across the field again, so I have to watch them a second time go back across, jump over the property line, off into the neighbor's woods. So I'm like, well, I got no other shot, so I just ran up, kept running, went up and sat in my ground blind for another half hour because we didn't get over there till after 7 o'clock, so it's getting dark.
Yeah.
But I was like, I might as well give it a shot. But then the next, that night, so nothing happened that day, but it was hilarious. It was fun.
Yeah. When
you're like not at all expecting, you're like, just whatever. Yeah. And of course, that's the one time where the 3 toms that I know are in town are like just casually hanging out. They'd been there 10 minutes earlier.
Right.
We'd both have a turkey dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like the story from last week where my giant, the biggest one I had, was at my house at like 11 o'clock on a Tuesday or what, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Just, why are you doing this to me?
Yep.
This is
Can't
not
do
okay.
Nothing about it.
No.
So the moral of those stories is walk in with 0 expectations to see anything and you'll see the monster.
Maybe.
Right?
I guess.
I don't know how hunting works.
That's how I killed my first deer.
I don't know.
Yep.
I mean, if you buy the right camo and you spend enough money on guns and ammo and bows with custom camo, you're going to kill a monster, right?
I mean, you have the same
Hunting's
chance everybody else, right?
Yeah, I know. Mike was like, wait,
what? Is that why I'm not successful? Because I'm poor?
No.
That's all three of our struggles.
Oh my gosh.
So
we're looking for sponsors.
no. So tell me about these, Mike.
Well, those are for Instagram posts later, but these are turkey loads, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah, what load are you shooting?
Gabe brought a couple of them.
I brought a couple
This
of them
one's
because
mine.
the middle one there, the Winchester Double X,
Okay.
it is a 5-shot. It took 3 shots to kill 1 raccoon last year of that. But
Is that the shell's fault or the aim?
it was the modified choke, not the turkey choke that I had on there.
That's fun. So that one back here.
I do have a turkey choke on there now, so
Good boy.
but I am shooting the red one, the Super X.
Okay.
It is a did I say the other one was a 5-shot? I think that one's a 4-shot.
That one is
This
says
one's a 5.
This
Yeah.
is a number 4.
Number 4-shot. It patterns very well out of my Remington 870 with a 26-inch barrel, 28-inch barrel. That's a great sound.
Yeah, we didn't talk about your gun in our turkey gear video.
Yeah, because I didn't bring it. I didn't get the memo that we were bringing guns to a turkey vest dump,
It's okay.
but it's okay.
I shoot the Longbeard XR number 4s, but I'm also out of them, so I don't shoot anything right now. I gotta go find some.
You can borrow some of mine. Just
I might have to
make
'cause
it work.
Right before we recorded this, I walked into a local sporting goods store, and the guy basically like took pity on me and was like praying for me that maybe I could find some because he says there's a shortage.
Oh, fun.
There's always a shortage of ammo the first week of seasons,
Wow.
or the 2 weeks before and the first weeks.
Yeah.
I blew through a whole box basically getting a red dot sighted in. So
That does not help. I know mine is shooting. Mine shoots like, I patterned out to 50, and I was pretty comfortable with that pattern. Same Longbeard XRs out of a 12 gauge. These are a 3-inch. With the extra full turkey choke that comes with whatever Mossberg, but mine pattern's super high, and I was just running the True Glow whatever sights, and I realized I went out hunting yesterday morning before work, that same property, because I had heard those birds. Came out the next morning thinking, hey, they'll come back.
Right.
They did not come back,
No.
in fact. But it was patterning super high, and I realized that in my commotion on Easter, I knocked my front sight off of the gun entirely.
Yeah.
So now I just have the 2 back ones. So hopefully
That's
they're
not ideal.
not at 50 yards, because that'll be interesting.
yeah.
Yep. I don't know where it is. I'm sure it's up against the tree that I was leaning against.
Might be wherever your other GoPro went.
Ooh.
I don't really want to talk about that. Okay?
If it makes you feel better. So I'm teasing Mike because he left a GoPro on top of his vehicle.
I was like going to film a video,
Yeah.
and I jumped in my buddy's truck and just didn't think anything of it. And it was sitting on the top, and on my way to work the next morning, I heard a little thud.
Yeah.
And I looked back, and there was something in the road. I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. Just kept on going. And came on my way back
It's a
there from
weird-looking
work.
squirrel.
I looked, and I was like, oh, that may have been my GoPro as I'm like driving by.
If it makes you feel better, I've killed 2 iPhones a decade apart in the same way by leaving them on my truck. One time, it was my first one ever, so this was probably like 2009, 2010, and I had one sitting on the. We went fishing, and I left it sitting on the back of my truck, and me and the guys drove off. Never found it. The next one was, again, about a decade later, so maybe 2019, 2020. I had set mine on the top of my truck. I used my wife's phone to go hunt it down. And, it kind of gives you a general area, but I'm parked kind of where I thought it was. Didn't see it. Then I look, and about 60 yards down the road, kind of down a hill, there it is, laying perfectly in the middle of the lane. So, double-sided road. It's perfectly in the middle of the lane. So,
yellows.
Yeah, not in the double yellows.
Oh,
like in the middle,
in between the tires.
Yes, in between the tires. So nobody's hit it, and I can now hear it making the ping, as I'm tracking or whatever. I was like, oh, sweet. So I start walking down the road to it. As I'm walking towards it, here comes a sweet old lady in an Oldsmobile.
Oh, no.
And she sees a man on the side of the road. So naturally, out of courtesy, she straddles the double yellow in order to give me plenty of room, but at the same time perfectly lining it up to where I watch her run over my phone.
That's fun.
And I was just 20, 30 yards off at that point. And so, yeah, my heart goes out to you right now for the camera, but I get it.
I killed one during deer season opening morning last year.
A phone?
Yep.
Oh, yeah,
that
you
happened?
did.
I had cracked the glass like a few weeks before season started. Yeah. And it rained so bad. It was a Sunday. So Saturday was opener. Sunday, it was like I got to my tree in the afternoon because I sat all day Saturday and then came back same spot Sunday morning, went out for lunch and came back in the afternoon. The second I got to the base of the tree, it started to like thunder and the wind picked up really bad. So I was like, I'm just going to sit here at the bottom of the tree and wait it out. So I did. And it kind of blew over. So I'm like, all right, I'm good. Climb up the tree, about getting settled in my saddle. And then I just hear it coming back down the mountain the way that it just went.
Yeah.
And I'm just watching it come down the mountain towards me. And it's like torrential downpours for like the next 45 minutes.
I remember that storm.
And I stuck it inside of my rain jacket in the pocket. And then when I unzipped the pocket, like water just poured out of the pocket. Like in a movie you would see. Like, yeah. So because the glass was cracked, everything was fried. It like worked when I got back to my car. I was like, cool, just go and throw it in rice and whatever and do that whole thing. And then it was in a repair shop for like 6 months. And they were like, no, we can't fix it. So. Anyways.
All right, well.
I think that's probably going to wrap this for episode number 3.
We just talked about a little bit of nothing. We told some stories. We made fun of Gabe.
We started with
scripture.
Theologically.
Yeah, we were like, hey, here's some surface level stuff. Let's dive and try to come back up for
the
air.
Water's fine, I promise.
The water's fine. Yeah.
All right, so we're going to wrap this one up. Thank you for watching / listening.
Yes,
this is the Reborn Outdoors podcast, episode number 3. I'm Mike.
Justin.
I'm Gabe.
Catch y'all on the next one.
See you then.